the view from inside and how you can grow a business from within Northern Ireland. David, over to you.
Thanks very much. I'm going to tell you more about a local homegrown success and share with you over the next half hour something about what's happening in United Dairy Farmers and Dale Farm. Can I start off by explaining what the difference is between United Dairy Farmers and Dale Farm? When the Milk Marketing Board was privatised back in 1995, the government gave the shares of the dairy industry, of that business, to all of the farmers who supplied it with milk. And back then there was a very small processing business given along with it called Dramona Quality Foods, and it accounted for about a quarter of our turnover. Now that company has grown into Dale Farm, and over those 10, 15 years, particularly over the last 8 to 10 years, it is 3/4 of the size of the group. The group itself has grown by 200, 300%, and Dale Farm is now heading to have grown almost fourfold from its original size. So I'm going to share the story of Dale Farm's growth, how we did it, and perhaps give you some advice on perhaps how you could do it in your business. The challenge we faced in Dale Farm is being faced by everyone in this room who's in business, and that is economic sustainability, building a business model, building a business that can create the cash flow and profits that can sustain itself for reinvestment, for development, and a scalable model, one where not only can you sustain your business, but you can grow and replicate what you're doing on a larger and larger scale. And to some extent, that's the challenge we face in Northern Ireland, where we have got to build an economic, sustainable model where the private sector can drive the wealth, can pay for the public sector, and the economy is in balance. So today, whilst we're talking about business, ultimately what we do collectively is going to drive the success or failure of the Northern Ireland economy. And if I echo something that Mark said, our story is about we believe that we can make a difference. And when I came to the group in 2000, we were in terminal decline. We were losing our farmers who owned the business, they were leaving us. We were losing sales, we were losing customers. 80% of our total output was into commodities which were sold with the support of subsidies from Europe, and those subsidies were going to be withdrawn. So we were in terminal decline, and our main business output was in an area where the subsidies were going to be withdrawn. And again, there's echoes of what's happening in Northern Ireland in that we are significantly subsidised and we depend on the subvention of the UK Exchequer to balance our books. And therefore we also face the challenge here of how we can make a difference. And the reason I'm here today is because I believe that everyone in this room, if we work together and focus on what we can do, can make a difference and can transform the Northern Ireland economy. We're a big exporter. Some of you may export, some of you don't. In Northern Ireland, we don't have enough exporters. But the home truth is that you've got to be internationally competitive in business, whether you export or not. In most areas now, most markets and sectors, we are seeing global competition in our home market. And therefore, even to succeed in Northern Ireland on sales of services or products, goods, you've got to be internationally competitive. And once you become internationally competitive, then you can replicate those sales beyond our shores. And our problem was that for 1.8 million people, our local market just wasn't big enough. Charles Darwin said, it isn't always the strongest or most intelligent that survive. It's those who can adapt, who can transform themselves and can move with the tide and the times. And if we take our sector in the dairy industry, these are the list of the fatalities, the dinosaurs, the companies that didn't transform and are now no longer trading. And the half-life in the dairy sector for companies is 10 years. The rate of consolidation globally within Europe and even within the UK and Ireland is 10 years the number of companies is halving. And that's actually true for farmers as well. So we're seeing smaller number of larger companies, and either you're a consolidator and you're moving forward and growing, or you're hitting the bone pile with the other dinosaurs. So what can you do in a business? And in reality, it all boils down to a few simple choices. You can get out, and you can decide either to get right out of the business and sell it, or get out of parts of the business that don't work. You can get bigger, you can get better, or you can get into something new which offers better opportunities or a better sustainable model than the business you're in. In many cases, it's a combination of all of those. You can do nothing. You can sit and wait for things to get better, but generally that's just the decision of getting out, but over a longer time frame. If you have to sit, if you are in a situation where you don't have the cash, other issues in your business you have to address, you've got to use the time to prepare. And in our case, when I first got into the business, we were in terminal decline. Something had to be done and done quite rapidly. But I spent the first months in the business researching the markets, understanding the business, planning on what we wanted to achieve, creating a vision and creating a strategy to deliver it, and then building the capability in the business so that we could make it happen. And it's all about people, and it's all about getting people to work together, whether it's the people in this room or the people in your business. And we created a strategy back in 2000 which was called Creating a Successful Future. And we had to persuade the workforce, not only were we going to transform the business, but we were going to have huge redundancies in the business. We were going to close operations, close businesses down, and we had to get out of the things that weren't working before we could get into the things that were offering the brighter future. And we had a huge transformation to do. We were a public sector organisation, and we were now in the private sector. We had a culture which was very risk averse, and we had to become entrepreneurial. We had a hierarchical structure with about 7 or 8 levels between the chief executive and the people who did the actual work. And we were very bureaucratic and slow. And we had to transform all of those things. And in moving from Dramona Quality Foods to the Dale Farm business, we went from being a local regional company, first then to being a national company, and now very much an international company. And back then in 2000, we were very much production-led. We made things, and then we went out to see if we could find someone who bought them or could buy them. Now we're market-led, and now we look at what the customer in the market requires, and we engineer our products and services to the customers we know that are out there. We were very much in commodities. 80% of our output was in milk powders, which were the same as everybody else's milk powders, and which were sold with the benefit of about a 30% subsidy from Europe. And we had to get out of all of that. 80% of our business was going to disappear. We were very much average. We were one of the pack. There was nothing special about us. And what we had to do was become much better in class, and rather than be conventional, be much more innovative. The one thing that I've learned in business is that most of our competitors, whatever business I've been in, have almost the same strategy. And the thing that sets you out from the crowd, the thing that creates a success over failure, is how good you and your team are at making it happen. And it's all about implementation. Yes, you must have a winning strategy, but if you don't implement it properly, it's just never going to happen. So I'm going to tell you now a little bit about the business, and rather than for me talk for the next 5 or 10 minutes on who United Dairy Farmers and Dale Farm are, I'm going to show you a short video, and then I'm going to tell you the story of the transformation.
Is the story of a leading UK dairy business. A dairy business focused on meeting the needs of consumers, customers, and the dairy farmers who own the business and supply it with milk. A dairy business which delivers excellence along its entire supply chain. And a dairy business that has a growing national and international presence. It's a story of innovation and growth, a story of excellence and success. Dale Farm is part of United Dairy Farmers, a UK dairy cooperative owned by 1,800 farmer shareholders. Together, these farmer members from England, Scotland and Northern Ireland supply the co-op with over 1 billion litres of milk each year, confirming its position as one of the top 5 dairy businesses in the UK. A temperate climate, lush grazing pastures and generations of farming know-how are the key ingredients that result in excellent quality milk, which is the basis of Dale Farm's dairy products. The cooperative adds value at every stage along the dairy supply chain, supporting farmers in the management of their dairy businesses and helping optimise milk quality. It provides feed rations that are specifically formulated to meet the needs of individual dairy herds and end products. The latest generation of milk tankers provide a best-in-class milk collection service, and industry-leading laboratory services provide rapid milk testing and feedback, all helping towards the production of top-quality milk and dairy products that are red tractor assured and meet the requirements of leading UK retailers and food service companies. Dale Farm has state-of-the-art facilities across the UK, producing a wide range of top-quality dairy products. Supplies this wide range of consumer and food ingredient products to retailers, food service companies and food processors across the UK and Ireland, as well as to over 40 countries worldwide. Its growing stable of brands is well known and well regarded. The product range has picked up over 50 internationally recognised awards for taste and quality in the past 2 years, delivering brand value and recognition. A brand value backed by major investment in Dale Farm's dairy processing plants across the UK, which include the most advanced cheddar cheese plant in Europe with whey nanofiltration facilities, producing specialised whey protein powders for international markets. One of the most modern liquid milk plants in the UK, a state-of-the-art butter and spreads manufacturing plant, and centres of excellence for the manufacture of yoghurt and dessert products at Kendal in the English Lake District and Rowan Glen in Galloway National Park, Scotland. Dale Farm's operations are supported by best-in-class logistics capability, including new central distribution centres at Kendal and Ballymena. From these centres, products are distributed to retailer, food service and food ingredient customers across the length and breadth of the UK and Ireland on a daily basis, all strengthening Dale Farm's position as a leading dairy business offering the best of British produce. Innovation remains central to Dale Farm's business strategy. Products developed within the last 3 years now account for over a quarter of Dale Farm's consumer product sales. Each day, the group handles thousands of transactions and queries at its customer and administrative support centre. The latest IT technology ensures an efficient and quality service to customers, suppliers and members. Dale Farm is a socially and environmentally responsible company with an emphasis on recycling, fuel efficiency and best practice. Excellence in operations means reduced costs, improved competitiveness and greater consumer appeal. Promoting a healthy lifestyle through sport, exercise and good nutrition has always been central to Dale Farm's ethos. From grassroots clubs to elite athletes and premium sport, Dale Farm's continued support ensures the importance of dairy is reaching a new generation. Dale Farm is a story of growth and success, of increasing market presence, building relationships along the supply chain, building brands, and above all, building value for its growing number of customers throughout the British Isles and across the world.
I should point out that's only one of 4 or 5 corporate DVDs we had. I've shown you the UK one. We've got ones in different languages. Since you don't speak Chinese or Spanish, maybe some of you do, I decided to choose the British one, which is much more about consumer products. But the key goal of any company is to be profitable. But for a cooperative, it's about returning that profit to its members. So in our case, we're not aiming just to make a profit. We're aiming to pay our suppliers a fair price for their products that they give us. So it's a supply chain business. It's about building growth and capability right along the supply chain from the farmer right through to the end processing. In the dairy sector, we've no choice. We must export. We produce nearly 2 billion litres of milk in Northern Ireland, and we've only got 1.8 million people. And that means about 85% of our output must be sold outside Northern Ireland. But thankfully, we're in a world where there's significant growth in population, and that population, particularly in the BRIC countries, is getting much more wealthy. And the consumption of dairy products is growing on a steady basis by around 2 or 3% per annum, and nearly all of that growth is coming from Asia. There is a dairy cycle, and if you're in commodities in dairy, like commodities anywhere else, there are cycles where the market is more favourable, generally when there's tight supply, and offers very poor returns when there's a surplus. Right now, milk prices are going up because there's a tightness in the market after the poor weather of the last year. But the market, because of those changes in weather and supply and demand, is a roller coaster. And in our business, we had to be careful. We were already in terminal decline, and building a business on commodities which can go up and down in price was just not the way forward for us. So we developed this pyramid showing the areas in our markets which offer the best return, and generally the areas of higher return were also less volatile in price. And our job was, as a team, to get from the commodity products, which were 80% of our business and which were in terminal decline because of the subsidies being withdrawn, into these higher value areas, as many as possible into the branded area or into novel products which were unique, but certainly out of the commodity sector. So we developed a plan, and that plan was not to just suddenly jump from being a commodity company to a leading brand in the retail sector, but to move slowly, firstly through low-risk things where we could improve our products, take our existing products, put them into new markets, then move into more difficult things where we'd look at starting to repackage and develop new products, and then finally into the higher risk things, the high roll of the dice items, where you're putting in a lot of market research and development to create brand new products and to launch those either into a global market or to a retail market. And the launch costs for a UK product can be at least £5 to £10 million if you want to do it nationally. So when you're doing that sort of thing, you really do need to have your research and your products just perfect for the market. To boil our strategy down, it's been very simple. We decided to get out of milk powder commodities and move into cheese and whey, which is a byproduct of cheese, and then to expand our consumer products. And what we plan to do and what we are doing is to slowly move out of the things that don't work and into the things that offer the better future. So cheese, for those of you who don't know much about it, cheese accounts for about a quarter of the total milk output of the world, and it's a growing sector. And the important thing, and the reason we targeted cheese, is our competitors are mainly in Europe, America, Canada, and Australia. So we were picking a fight with people who had a cost base similar to ourselves and a wage structure similar to ourselves. We weren't taking on countries where they had a much lower cost base. We specifically went out to take on competition where we knew we could survive and prosper. So our strategic goals were to become a top 5 British company in cheese, which we've now become, and then slowly develop an export market. And this year, the major growth in our business would be sales to Russia and to North Africa. Whey is a byproduct for cheese. For every litre of milk you put into a cheese plant, you get 90% of it back in whey, and the whey contains valuable nutrients. And if you look at those nutrients, more and more, they're being recognised for their value, and they're going into specialist products. And that market is growing far faster than the cheese market. It's growing by 7.5% by value, and it's a £4.5 billion pound market. The biggest growth in whey products is for infant formula. And what's happening in infant formula is countries like China and India are now becoming big users of infant formula. And to put it in context, China now has 4 times the market for infant formula products than America has. And China's only been in infant formula for about 4 or 5 years. And in infant formula, when you're feeding your child a baby, you really want to get it right. You're not going to take chances. You're not going to buy a substandard brand. You're not going to buy a brand you haven't heard of. You're not going to buy a product that you're not sure of. And because of that, the customer's prepared to pay more and pay for quality and pay for research, development, and innovation. So in whey products, Our challenge is to become a global player in infant formula, not the end product, but in supplying ingredients to the multinationals who dominate that market. We're still going to supply other markets, and the key market for us is to put 25% of our output into global branded products which use whey ingredients. Summarising our strategy, and our strategy over the years has morphed from creating a successful future to growing in value. And it's all about the inputs, it's all about getting best-in-class supply chain, getting your costs down both by increasing your scale and being better at what you do, getting out of low-cost or low-added value products, and then targeting your markets, targeting the markets that you know that you can take on the competition and beat. But that requires huge research and a lot of effort to make sure you understand where you're going and how you're going to get there. All of us have huge pressures on our supply chain in terms of the cost bases that are going up, increasing legislation, customers who are getting bigger and therefore can negotiate harder. And you've got to balance that seesaw. If you want to see success, you've got to be able to tip the seesaw of success and failure in your favour. And how you do that is you've got to be constantly doing things in your business that offset those challenges. So as costs go up, you've got to find ways of reducing the costs in your business, about marketing your products to get better added value, about innovating to create a new product and a new market. Really what we're all trying to do is create a monopoly, create a product that no one else can supply. And when you're in that product range or you're in that market zone where you are the best or the only one who can supply it, you can name your price and you can get a much better margin. In the food sector, there are all sorts of trends, and these are the 4 mega trends of the last decade, where people are much more concerned about health and well-being. They're much more into products which are easy to eat. And in our industry, we talk about one-handed products, products that you can eat when you're on the phone or when you're on your iPad. And that's a big, big growth area. You need to understand those trends and then ride or surf that wave with sales. But if you don't get the wave right, if you're too late and you miss it, or you're too early, you get swamped and you get drowned. So you've got to get your timing right. The biggest trend over the last 3 years in the UK and Ireland has been consumers hunting harder for value. The food sector isn't hit by recession in the sense that our demand doesn't go down, but the consumers' preferences and the consumers' wants have changed, and that's been about hunting harder for value. In the whey industry, it's all about trying to climb the ladder of added value. And we started off in the bottom left-hand quadrant, where 10 years ago, we just sold our whey to pig feed, and pig feeders were buying it in liquid form for very little value to us and feeding it to pigs. Now we're feeding it to children across the world as infant formula. And in terms of the added value change from pigs to babies, and that sounds awful, I know, but that's what it's all about, getting out of what's not working or what's not paying and getting into something which is clearly a much more attractive future. If you go to Bangor Market this weekend, you can buy this polo shirt for under £3. If you buy one very like it in Paris, New York or Rome, you'll pay 40 or 50 pounds. Is it much different? Possibly not. In fact, you could probably get the same one in Bangor Market for £3 as well. But it's the imagery of the brand. By adding the Ralph Lauren polo mark, suddenly it becomes a sought-after fashion accessory, and the consumer will pay 10 times more. The problem in most companies is the CEOs believe that their brand is superior, the consumers want it, and the reality when you do the research is about 8% of their customers agree. So you need customer feedback. You need to know that your brand really does turn on the consumer and is hitting the hot zone. Now, we're very strong in the home market, and we did start off as a regional company, but we've never turned our back on the home market. It's vital if you want to export and succeed externally that you've got a strong home base. So we are number 1 or 2 in every product category in the dairy sector in Northern Ireland, and we're now trying to build that position not only in Ireland but in the UK. We started off 10 years ago with 2 local brands, and now we've got a family of brands. Some are still local. Others, like Ryan Glen, are targeted to Scotland. Dale Farm Ingredients is now a global brand, and Lowesley and Dale Farm Lakeland are English and South English brands. And what we're trying to do is win on a local, regional basis, but also win nationally and internationally. But if you're going to build a brand reputation, you've got to show that you're offering something different. And for us, we've gone into the beauty contests for dairy products. And again, it's a huge cost. These are held right across the globe, from Wisconsin to England to Paris, etc. And we've entered those. And it's in the video with 50 awards. This year we've doubled that. We've 102 international awards. And on the back of winning those awards, we've won business. We won the Lidl contract for cheese for the Europe. We started off with no Lidl business. We won an award. Lidl tried our cheese. They liked it. They tried it in the UK. They tried it in Ireland. And now it's in Holland, Germany, and we're supplying cheese to Lidl right across Europe on the back of entering a beauty contest and showing how our product faced up to the competitors. But innovation is important, and early on in our transformation, we put quite a bit of money into building an innovation centre in Ballymena. But it's not about building the business or building the bricks and mortar. It's about what you do inside. And a classic example of innovation, everybody thinks when you talk about innovation, it's all about research and high-tech stuff. Heinz had a problem with their tomato ketchup. You couldn't get it out. You turned the bottle upside down, you banged it, you thumped it, and if you were lucky, you got 2/3 of the product out, and generally it all came out in one go rather than when you wanted it. So they turned it upside down. They put it into a squeezable plastic bottle. They doubled the price, and at the same time, their sales have gone up. Now, there's an example of innovation and ideas in action. It's not all about rocket science. It's about doing something that consumer values. Innovation is about taking research and ideas and turning them into money. It's not about sinking a fortune into R&D in a university or an R&D establishment. You do need to do that, but it's about taking the ideas that are there and putting them into action and making money. Last year, we launched 69 new products, probably in reality about 15 new products because we have different flavours in each of the products. And 25% of our sales are now coming from products that we've launched in the last 2 to 3 years. Interesting enough, if you were to pick the success on that page, it's the product to the left. It's the innocuous bag of Gold Star whey protein, which we're selling into China, Holland, and Germany. And that product in its first year generated £5 million of sales, and this year is going to double. And it's about getting the market right. In the international markets, we're not going to be able to be a branded entity across the world, but we can be a specialist ingredient supplier. So our transformation has been to be a brand in our home and national market, and perhaps in Europe, but really an international expert in nutrition. We've also got an opportunity locally about our provenance and our pedigree. In the video you saw, the DVD you saw, it talked about our British credentials, about being Red Tractor. So in the British market, we're British, but in many other markets, we're Irish. And we have the benefit of our dual nationality because there's some markets where being Irish, the US would be a good example, is a turn on. And being an Irish product is going to get you a better price than being British. And there's other markets that being British works. So there's an advantage that we have in Northern Ireland over other regions in the British Isles. We put a huge investment into transforming our business, into training people, into recruiting people, into growing, developing them, but also into giving them the resources, the tools, the equipment, the plant, so that they can succeed and they've got the best opportunity to succeed. This is our cheese plant, and we've just finished a £20 million investment, creating what we believe is the most modern cheese plant in Europe. But it's this plant that's going to make us the money. This is our nanofiltration plant, where we're going to be targeting this at a global market. And we talk about we're being in the top 5 in the UK, we're in the top 20 in Europe. This plant is going to get us into the top 50 in the world, and this is where our future lies. And this plant it's the most state-of-the-art plant in the world in terms of separating out proteins for things like baby food powders and baby food ingredients. And it does it in an efficiency and a hygiene level that no one else can. But you've also got to have logistics. You've got to have a route to market. Talked about our business. We've got 9 manufacturing facilities across the British Isles. 80% of what we produce is here locally. But we needed those bridgeheads in Scotland and in England to become more local there, but also to have the logistics to piggyback on their capability to sell our products from Northern Ireland into that market. We've got a huge array of products. This is our consumer products, and these are the customers that we sell it to. Every supermarket in the UK and Ireland has one of our products, whether it's in our brand or in their brand. And some of those supermarkets are international, and by supplying them in Ireland or in the UK, we'll be able to grow with them into markets across Europe and further afield. Sales for last year in Dale Farm, you go right back, Dale Farm was a quarter of the group's turnover. Sales last year in Dale Farm were 228 million. Sales forecast for this year is 300 million, and we're now growing at 35% per annum in our market. And that's because we built a scalable model. We put the investment in. We're now going into a global market where we're a small player, where there's huge potential in terms of customer opportunities versus our scale. Last year we exported 75 million. This year we're going to export over 100 million. And indeed, most of the growth is now coming from export markets. And if we take that story of transformation, in 2001, when we were in terminal decline, we were selling £18 million worth of product into the consumer products market, mainly local. Now we're doing £140 million, mainly national and across Europe. If you take food ingredients, nobody made them in Dale Farm. We weren't in food ingredients. And we've generated £60 million worth of sales from a standing start. But what we have done and what's held us back is we've had to get out of the things that we didn't find sustainable, and that was commodities, where subsidies were going, everyone else was doing them, and we weren't the cheapest show in town. So our commodity sales continue to fall, and our plan is in the next 3 to 5 years to be totally out of those. And once we get out of them, then our sales will grow even faster because we're not losing that decline. We have 42 customers currently globally, and the main growth for us would be in the Asian market. And just to put it in context, we sell 1 million cases of consumer products a week, and that means a consumer every 8 seconds is consuming a Dale Farm product. And that's a moment of truth for us. Is that product going to be right? Is the packaging right? Is it going to taste well? Is it kept well? Is it appealing? Is the taste going to be right? And those moments of truth, every 8 seconds we have a moment of truth. Is the consumer going to buy our product the next time? And we talk about the ruthlessness of business. The ruthlessness of business is in this room, but in this room as consumers. The consumer is the most ruthless person I know. If he goes into a shop or she goes into a shop and their brand that they normally buy isn't there, they'll buy somebody else's brand. If it's out of stock, they'll buy it. If they don't like it the last time, they'll buy something different. If it's not cheapest on the day, they'll buy something else. If they can go onto the web and buy the product that you offer somewhere else at a better price, they'll do that. And we've got to wake up and realise that we as consumers are driving the pressure, the ruthlessness in business, because everyone wants a better deal. And our job is to give them that deal and make a profit in the process. Just finally, just finishing with a few slides, just to show the journey. We started off closing. We started off shutting down things that weren't working. And in the first part of our journey, we halved the number of people that worked in the company, not just by shutting things down, but by also taking out inefficiency and putting in automation. And we then started to grow. By halfway through the process, we had doubled our sales and halved our people, which meant we'd quadrupled our productivity. But now look what's happening in the last number of years. We're taking on people. We're nearly back to the number of people that we started with, which is 1,000, but we're doing 3 to 4 times the sales that we were. And we've got a scalable model which can grow each year into a global market and replicate the sales wider and wider into more markets and to more customers. Yes, we've done some acquisitions along the route, and therefore all of our growth hasn't been organic. But last year, our organic growth was 35%. So once we had built the framework, once we'd got the scalable model, it was much, much easier to drive it forward. So for us, Dale Farm's target now is the world, and those parts of the world that are prepared to pay more for their product and want something different. So back to, and in summary, back to what I started with. It's all about economic sustainability, building a model for your business that will work for you, and for all of us building a model which will work for Northern Ireland. But you've got to believe you make a difference. You've got to believe that you can change the future. It's not about fate, it's about making your own future and taking control of the moment. So I believe, as Mark does, everyone in this room, if we apply ourselves to our business, that collectively that will have a huge impact on the Northern Ireland economy. Thank you very much.